Hi, my beautiful little bookwormies. How are you doing tonight? I wanted to, first of all, apologize that we're starting the vlog off on my phone, but it's because my camera is currently charging battery. So I will switch over at the earliest convenience, but I just really wanted to start this vlog before I got any further into these books, both of them which I'm reading for this video. As you can probably tell by the title, welcome. Formally, I think we need to like cut a ribbon. Episode 1 of reading your favorite books. This is probably not a new video idea, but it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. I have been, always paying attention to what you say. You guys just say and think and feel the best things, and I want to read what you're reading. I want to know what your favorite books are. It's why I always ask you at the end of every wrap up, and so I decided to start a series on this channel where I read your favorite books of all time. So that's what we're going to be doing this week. I am so excited because I have started both of them that I'm doing for this video, and I am loving both of them. You've got great taste. So let me explain where I pulled these pics from. I didn't just like pull them out of my ass. I first went to a video that I filmed years ago. It needs a reboot. It really needs a reboot. That will hopefully be coming soon. But that is where I asked 1,000 people, 1,000 of you, what your favorite book of all time was. And so I picked a book off of the list that you gave me, the top, like, I don't know, I think it was the top 20 or something, that I hadn't read. I picked one that I hadn't read, and that one is 1984 by George Orwell. Wow. I've read George Orwell before, but I ain't never read him like this. 1984 is something else. I can 1,000% see why this book was on that list. This is so good. It is so good. It is so harrowing. So I picked this one, and I'm already 184 pages through, but I'll get into this one with you in a second because this is going to be a 5-star probably for me. The next book I picked based on the amount of comments I received on one of my, I think it was my little library, little free library tour that I did a while ago. Because this book I've owned for such a long time. I got this copy thrifted, and when I went to part ways with it because I hadn't read it, I didn't think I was gonna like it very much, so many people kicked up their feet and they were like, don't you dare get rid of that book. You need to keep it. You need to read it. It's so good. It's my favorite book of all time. It's my favorite young adult. It's such a great series. You're gonna love it. It is so good. What do you think you're doing, Miss Emma, getting rid of that book? And I was like, okay, I won't get rid of it. And that book is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Once again, I've read Maggie Stiefvater. I love Maggie Stiefvater. I love her Shiver series, probably just the first one. I love the Scorpio races. And I also read like her ballad book, which is her book about Fae, and now I shall read The Raven Boys. As for The Raven Boys, I'm currently 86 pages through. Let's start with just giving you a little overview of, I almost said the Scorpio races, The Raven Boys, because this, whoa, The Raven Boys. Okay, so we have this girl, her name is Blue. I know, if the book can live up to having a semi-cringy main character name, I can get behind it, and so far The Raven Boys is. So Blue lives with her mother and a large group of women who kind of pop in and out, and they're all clairvoyants. They can all see into the future. They all have visions, they all have presentiments, they can prophesy when things are gonna happen. They all have this power. Blue does not have this power. The only thing she can do is amplify these other women's power, as well as her own mother's, by being near them when they're performing like seances, or when they're trying to communicate with the spirit world, or when they are having a vision. Blue acts as an amplifier, but she doesn't have any supernatural gift of her own. So there has always been a prophecy about Blue. She'd been told that she would kill her true love. If Blue was to kiss her true love, he would die. Of course, she's like, the warning was specific, but in the way of a fairy tale. It didn't say how her true love would die. It didn't say how long after the kiss he would survive. Did it have to be a kiss on the lips? Would a chaste peck on the back of his palm prove as deadly? Until she was 11, Blue was convinced she would silently contract an infectious disease, one press of her lips to her hypothetical soulmate, and he too would die in a consumptive battle, untreatable by modern medicine. Can I just say something about Maggie Stiefvater and the Raven Boys in particular? The writing is superb. The writing is superb. It's so fun. Maggie Stiefvater is so playful, so quirky with it, but in a way that is completely natural. It works. I'm loving the writing. I'm loving it so much. I think she really lets it shine through in the Raven Boys. I think it's a book that is well suited to that kind of like quirky, saying things a little bit off and weird sometimes type of writing. So what is the problem? What is the problem with this prophecy? Every year, Blue stands next to her mother as the soon-to-be dead walk past. So they head to the graveyard, the cemetery, every year. They watch the souls go by and they jot down the names of everyone who is going to die that year. To be specific, the souls walking by are not people who are dead yet, but they are people who are going to die in the next year. And this is how the clairvoyants know who's going to pass away. They go to the cemetery and they get their names down. The problem is that Blue sees this young boy named Gansey. She knows loosely of Gansey a little bit, and she's going to come to know him a lot more because he is part of the group of really pretentious, upper class, rich boys who go to Aglionby boarding school, prep school, and this is a group and a school and an institution that Blue hates. She's like sworn off. She thinks they are the worst curse on the town. They are just this really pretentious, prestigious, powerful group of young lads who are insufferable, and she's like, I'm never going to get involved with them. I'm never going to mess with them. I'm certainly never going to fall in love with them. Think again. Because in the cemetery that night, she sees Gansey walk by and she's like, oh my gosh, he's gonna die. And it's also weird as heck that she can see him because she shouldn't be able to see any of the dead. Anyway, we finally meet Gansey. I like Gansey. I'm liking everyone in this book. Gansey hangs out with a group of boys known as the Raven Boys. They're called the Raven Boys because that's like the insignia on their school uniform. Gansey has like a thing of his own, a little hobby, shall we say, kind of an obsession that is connected to Blue in a way because he wants to use the supernatural, clairvoyant, into the future gazing powers of Blue and her family to discover where an old Welsh king was buried. He believes in ley lines, he's got it all tracked out, and together with his fellow Raven Boys, he is trying to track down this legend of the Welsh king. Who's my favorite? I think it's Adam. I think Adam is my favorite Raven Boy so far. He's so cute. So we have Gansey, I think is this one. Then we have Ronan, who is, I guess, the bad boy. He's very brooding all the time. He's got a dark past. He's got some family issues. He's always getting into fights. People are kind of scared of him. Then we have Adam, who is maybe this one. He's very shy. He's very soft-spoken. He's the more academic of the group. He seems very kind. Him and Blue have just met at the part I'm at and they're kind of hitting it off and it's really cute and I really like Adam. Who's the other guy? Oh no. I forget the other guy. I'm sorry, I forget the other Raven Boy. He's kind of not in my mind right now. But the legend that they're following, I'm probably going to pronounce this absolutely incorrectly. I'm so sorry. We're following Owen Glendower. He was a medieval Welsh noble and he had fought against the English for Welsh freedom and then, when capture seemed inevitable, disappeared from the island and from history altogether. It's surmised that this noble could never die and that maybe he's still living, maybe he's immortal. Have you heard of the legends of sleeping kings? The legend that heroes like Arthur and Glendower aren't really dead but are instead sleeping in tombs waiting to be woken up. That he was brought over to the New World, specifically here in Virginia, and Gansey wants to find where he's buried. Oh, Noah! Noah is the other one. Noah always seemed a little grubby. There was something out of place about his clothing. His mostly combed back fair hair, his unkempt uniform always made Adam feel a little less like he stuck out. I'm really enjoying the atmosphere, the writing. I feel like Maggie Stiefvater is so good at adding in little details that just make the world so believable. It feels like I know everyone. It feels like I can see it all. That is The Raven Boys. That's the first one we're going to be reading. I hope it only gets better and better. As for 1984, it's already better and better. It's already a 5-star. As you can see, I kind of zoomed through almost half of this book, so we have the other half to go through now. This one, I don't think I want to give you spoilers for, so let me just preface this video with saying I think I'm going to give you spoilers for the first book of The Raven Boys, but for 1984, I want you to be able to just go in and read it, because of course I knew vaguely what 1984 was about. I've read George Orwell before, I've read Animal Farm, I've read a few of his essays, but I've never read 1984. Reading it for the first time, this is one of those books that like I want to see people's reactions to. Reading for the first time, I do not want you to get it from me. I want you to go right to the source. If you don't know, 1984 is set in a world not like our own. It is a world like our own. It's a portrayal of what our worlds could become more of. 1984 is set in a world where everything is controlled, everything is monitored, more specifically catering to the upper classes. Thought is controlled, speech is controlled. The past is altered every single second. It's just so good, so important, so horrifying, and so real, so real. So we mainly are following this one young man. This world where you are not allowed to have original thoughts. You can't do things like keep a journal. Pretty much every single book is banned, every single piece of media is banned, everything is manufactured as propaganda for the party. We follow Winston Smith, and he works for the Ministry of Truth in London. It's a very different London than what we know now. So his job, day to day, working for the ministry, is to go in to files, to pieces of media, to news, to books, to journals, whatever is left over, and alter the past. So for example, on Monday, the party, for example, celebrated this young woman as a hero, as maybe writing this new piece of propaganda for Big Brother, or just doing something that really contributes to the party, and they publish a piece on her and they're highlighting how great she is. If the next day she denounces the party and she doesn't even get killed, she gets annihilated. Every piece of her will be ripped from the world, will just be consigned to oblivion. You won't be able to know her name, you won't remember her. Every trace that she ever existed will be wiped. So that's where people like Winston come in. So his job is to take what they said about her in the past and rewrite it so that it lines up with the events that the party has most recently done. So he would change the article that came out celebrating her, rewrite it to make it sound like it was condemning her for something that would make sense with why she was obliviated. Is obliviated actually a word, or am I just saying Harry Potter spells? So good. So Winston is living under this regime, but he doesn't agree with it. He's just a prisoner. He's just stuck in the system, and he doesn't see a way out. He does start rebelling though, because he finds a journal and a pen at a shop in the space of the proles, so the proletariats, the working class, who do not have the same luxuries and privileges as people like Winston who are party members. They live on the streets, they're hungry, and they don't really have much of anything, but they certainly seem to have more freedom than people like Winston who are living this very rigid life. So Winston acquires this journal and he starts to write, even though it's a crime. Like, there's cameras in his home, people are always watching him, but he starts to write, even knowing that if it was ever discovered, it would be the end of him. More than the end of him, there would have been no beginning of him. He would just be wiped. And people are constantly getting wiped. Everything is constantly getting wiped. Regardless, he starts to voice his feelings and his discontent and his rage at the party, and he's like, isn't there more than this? Can't there be more than this? So good. I don't think I can really convey to you how good this book is. The party slogan is "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." Winston embarks on this mission to try to find the past, because in this society, in this world, there's no such thing anymore. When it's overwritten, it's overruled, and it's destroyed every single day. Winston is like, I want to know what was before the party. Was it really better? Because obviously the party's like, we're in control. Everything before us was crap. We have arrived to make your lives much better, and everything before was just misery. But of course, no one owns anything anymore. Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters inside your skull. In front of him, there lay not death, but annihilation. The diary would be reduced to ashes and himself to vapor. Only the thought police would read what he had written before they wiped it out of existence and out of memory. How could you make an appeal to the future when not a trace of you, not even an anonymous word scribbled on a piece of paper, could physically survive? Of course, there's like constant wars going on with Oceania, Eurasia. The world has been kind of reorganized after the war, but he's trying to find out like what was there before this war that happened. He can't even really get any information on it. Where did knowledge exist? Only in his own consciousness. which in any case must soon be annihilated. And if all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became truth. Who controls the past, ran the party slogan, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past. And yet the past, though of its nature alterable, never had been altered. Whatever was true now was true from everlasting to everlasting. All that was needed was an unending series of victories over your own memory. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. Everything faded away into a shadow world in which finally even the date of the year had become uncertain. Like, he has no idea. It's called 1984 because it's supposed to be set in 1984, but Winston doesn't even know if it actually is 1984 or not. So far, so good. So far, so good. Absolutely 5-star material. I understand completely. I was not a fan of Animal Farm. I just didn't like it very much. Loving this to death. Oh my god. It's so good. I've met Julia, for those of you who have read this book and know what happens, but we have met Julia, who's another woman who works at the ministry, and Winston famously hates her when he first sees her. He thinks that she's a spy for the thought police. The thought police are the people who work to control your thoughts, because if they can control your thoughts, they can control you. They're the one who come to people's houses in the middle of the night, drag them out, and they're never seen again. So Winston thinks that Julia is a spy for the thought police because she's a bit too into it, so he's kind of scared of her and therefore he hates her. We find out that this isn't true, and I mean, it says in the synopsis, but they do start to have a romance together, so that's what this book kind of slides into focusing on, just a touch bit more. But right now where I'm at, other things are happening, but I'm gonna stop myself because I've been talking for too long. Gonna go charge my camera battery, and welcome to reading your favorite books. Okay, so update number 2 with the Raven Boys. I'm on page 146 and it is so fun. It's so fun. Updates in the book. Ronan, the kind of scary, tough tattoo boy, has found a baby raven seemingly out of nowhere, and he's now decided that he's going to keep it as a pet, and it's going to be their symbol, and he's going to take it with him everywhere, even to school. The 3 boys, Noah excluded because Noah seems to be the most introverted of them all. He doesn't really want to go anywhere, fair enough, but they have just gone to Blue's house to get... There's way too much construction. Come with me. Sorry if you can still hear it. I can still hear it. There's been so much construction recently, but I need to film. 3 Raven Boys, what I was just saying a couple minutes ago, they've arrived at Blue's house for their reading. I love the 3 women, the principal 3 women. We have Mara, who is Blue's mother, we have Persephone, and we have Kala. The way that they're described, the way that Maggie Stiefvater writes, I was just thinking to myself earlier this morning, why don't they write young adult books like this anymore? It's been so long since I've read a new release YA that has read the Raven Boys do, that reads like Maggie Stiefvater writes, and it's so... I don't know how to tell you it. Let me just read you some lines or a scene, and I feel maybe you'll kind of get what I mean. This one is just the introduction of Persephone. Pushing open the door, Blue found Persephone sitting at the card table beside the window. When pressed, people often remembered Persephone's hair, a long, wavy white blonde mane that fell to the back of her thighs. If they got past her hair, they sometimes recalled her dresses, elaborate, frothy creations or quizzical smocks, and if they made it past that, they were unsettled by her eyes, true mirror black, the pupils hidden in the darkness. Kala was less likely to have left the door open, as she was an irascible, sedentary creature of habit, but Persephone tended to get caught in odd drafts and blow around. One thing else that I just really admired was that we have a character in here. He is the Latin teacher at Egley and B, so he's very educated. He's an academic. He's older than the Raven Boys, of course, but he's not an old professor. He's quite new to it. But we find out that he's also looking for the ley lines. He's also searching for the Welsh King, and we find out that he has lost his best friend in doing so. His best friend has either died, been sent off to some spirit world that he can't escape from, or he's just disappeared. But we've already been introduced to this character. His name is Welks, his last name, through the eyes of the Raven Boys, so we already know who he is. However, on page 118, someone shows up in Blue's chapters because the book is split mostly between Gansey and Blue with a few interludes of some other scenes. But a man shows up at Blue's house asking to do a reading. The reader doesn't know who he is until as the scene starts to unfurl, we realize that it's Welks, that it's someone we've already met, but we're getting him through the eyes of Blue and her family. And it's so, I don't know, it's just so well done. It's just really simple things like this that catch you off guard, that add to a good story, and that really show that Steve Otter is writing for the reader. And it's so fun because you slowly start to unravel via mostly his reading that they do for him who this character is, and it's really interesting. It requires a little bit of work, a little bit of trust from the author, and it just so masterfully executed. I'm just continually impressed. This close to the man, he had the overpowering chemical scent of a manly shower gel, the sort that normally came in a black bottle and was called something like shock or excite or blunt trauma. Kind of since the beginning when I've met them, I've really started to ship Adam and Gansey together. I really like them. They have this really interesting dynamic. Gansey is super well off, like rich generations and generations and generations back into his family. Adam, on the other hand, he's worked so hard to get into Eglinby to be where he is. He's holding down 3 jobs. He lives in a bit of a renovated trailer park. His father beats him. He's going to have, hopefully, a rags to riches story, but Adam says to Gansey, rags to riches isn't a story anyone wants to hear until after it's done. And so Gansey and Adam are continually having arguments because Gansey is just like, I can pay for you, I'll pay your way, leave home, come live with me, it doesn't matter. But Adam wants to do everything his own way. He thinks that if he just lets Gansey buy him, then he's not gonna be his own person anymore. He's gonna lose himself. And so there's this like continual argument. A wrinkle formed between Adam's eyebrows as he looked away, not at the double wides in the foreground, but past them to the flat, endless field with its tufts of dry grass. So many things survived here without really living. He said, it means I never get to be my own person. If I let you cover for me, then I'm yours. I'm his now, and then I'll be yours. So they are just sitting down to do the reading, and it's so good because Blue finally realizes that Gansey, the boy who she saw the spirit of in the graveyard, is this like really rich, prestigious, arrogant boy who she hates at school, even though like they don't go to the same school. I love how it's moving at a slower pace because I think like nothing too much is happening. It's just been daily life. We're learning about the characters, we're getting depth and insight and little moments with them, and I think that's what a lot of YA books don't do anymore. I feel a lot of them are just like, oh my gosh, we have to go from this to this to this, we have to bound and not really settle on anything. But the way that Steve Otter is like patient with her own story and also very patient and clever with her language, first of all, it makes it extremely interesting, extremely pleasurable to read, and also you just feel so much more like you're in the world, like you're there. I want to hit the 200 page mark today for sure, and then yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep saying thank you in this video for making me pick this one up. Good morning. We talk about this book. Okay, so one of my favorite things in 1984, I was reading a little bit more of it this morning. One of my favorite things about this book is, okay, the language. The language. George Orwell is famously, I mean, he's very concerned with language. A lot of what he talks about is language, but in 1984, obviously everything is trying to be restricted, controlled, even the words that you speak, and so they're going about creating a whole new language called Newspeak. The aim of Newspeak is to narrow the confines of your own mind, like literally control your own thoughts, because they want to decide which words you think in your head. So Winston has like not really a friend. You don't really have friends in this world. He has a coworker who is one of these language people, and he says you would think our job is to create new words, but no, we're destroying words, scores of them, hundreds of them every day. We're cutting the language down to the bone. The 11th edition of their dictionary won't contain a single word that will become obsolete before the year 2050. It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words. Of course, the great wastage is in the verbs and adjectives, but there are hundreds of nouns that can be got rid of as well. It isn't only the synonyms, there are also the antonyms. After all, what justification is there for a word which is simply the opposite of some other word? A word contains its opposite in itself. Take good, for instance. If you have a word like good, what need is there for a word like bad? Ungood will do just as well. better because it's an exact opposite, which the other is not. Again, if you want a stronger version of good, what sense is there in having a whole string of vague, useless words like excellent and splendid and all the rest of them? Plus good covers the meaning, or double plus good, if you want something stronger still. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it. Every concept that can ever be needed will be expressed by exactly one word. Nightmare elements, obviously. Elements of utopia though as well, because the frustration of language, so much of it is that it doesn't mean what you want it to. Everything means something different, so they're trying to create a whole language, a whole dictionary of words that only ever can mean one thing. There can be no question about interpretation. Everything means exactly what it is set out to mean. We have met Julia. I mean, I'm quite a good way into the book, and Julia, like, Winston hated her in the beginning we were talking about because he thinks she is a spy. She's way too zealous. Turns out that's not the case at all. Turns out that Julia has been quite smitten with Winston for a while, and they come together to form some sort of a relationship, some sort of a pact, and then they get involved in this very secret uprising, rebellion group. And I don't think I want to say any more than that because I think that's where the synopsis leaves you. They talk about the past being abolished. Do you realize that the past starting from yesterday has been actually abolished? If it survives anywhere, it's in a few solid objects with no words attached to them, like that lump of glass there. Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street and building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And that process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. I'm on page 210, and things are moving at quite a rapid pace. I think everything about this book is just 5-star. I really, really love it. I think it's so... God, just so good. It's so good and so frightening and so real. So that is my update with 1984. Absolutely loving it. And then last night I read a lot more of the Raven Boys, and I'm still really enjoying it. I got to page 230, and the tension between Adam, Blue, and Gansey. I'm pretty sure I was saying yesterday, I think, that I was like really, really shipping Adam and Gansey, but I also really love Adam and Blue. But I also love Gansey and Adam, and I think that's what the book is working towards. I'll be very shocked because this isn't like an earlier YA paranormal fantasy romance, but if the love triangle is like literally a love triangle where like multiple people are interested in multiple people in the triangle, that is my favorite. That makes it so much more interesting, because the tension when like Gansey sees Adam with Blue, all of them go up in a helicopter. Gansey, Adam, Ronan, and Blue, because Blue has now decided that she's gonna try and help the Raven Boys. Sorry, I'm like balancing because you're kind of a little high up and balancing on my feet. All kind of together now, forming an uneasy alliance. Obviously, Adam completely trusts her. Gansey, and Ronan like hates her because Ronan is just very tough and like hates everyone and doesn't let anyone in. But they're sitting beside each other in the helicopter, Adam and Blue, and Gansey's like, there was nothing particularly intimate about the way they sat, but something about the scene made Gansey feel strange, like he'd heard an unpleasant statement and later forgotten everything about the words but the way they made him feel. Just really like it. It's so interesting. It's so good. The boys did go to Blue's house to get their card readings done, and basically they were thrown out. Like, they were just kind of thrown out. They had a few readings done, but then eventually Blue's mom was just like, you know what, get out of my house, I'm done. There's just something really off about everyone's energy here. Because I'm reading these for the first time, I'm upset. Like, I'm getting taken by surprise. I don't know how 1984 ends. I've never known. I've never been spoiled. I don't know, but I just got to part 3 last night, and I'm upset. I was like shocked. I was feeling all of the things, and I was really sorry, I keep saying upset. There's no other word for it. I'm on page 237. I don't have very much to finish up in here, and I'm so sad. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think this is where it was going. Don't know how it ends. I mean, I feel like knowing the book, I don't think it can end well at all, but I'm like very very upset about it. So it's just continued to be really, 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 really good. I just had to get through all of the chapters. Honestly, not even get through, but you can see how it's kind of like a textbook, and that's because there is like a text in here in the world that you read that kind of explains the world, which is really interesting, really fascinating. I really like that part, but now I don't want to keep reading because like upset. It's very affecting, and it's not really that I've grown attached to Winston or Julia. It's just like because they represent like everyone and they represent humanity, I'm like upset for them and I only want good things for them. This is just making me want to do these kinds of videos like with your favorite books more often, because both of these I'm just having such a good time and I'm so happy I'm reading them. So I think I was talking about the helicopter part last time, and if I didn't say, the helicopter is flown by Gansey's sister Helen, who is a helicopter pilot, because of course she is. Like we said, they see this huge raven pattern up in the sky when they're over Virginia. Okay, well, we have to go down and investigate. That's really weird that there's this big raven. They go down and they find the raven. It's kind of like the Nazca lines, and they compare it to that. But the raven has been constructed, so you can see it from the sky, using a bunch of seashells, even though they're nowhere near the sea really, and that doesn't make any sense. And so they go up there, they kind of start to look around, and all of a sudden it's kind of like they enter a dream, or like they enter someone's vision, or Gansey comments that it seems like he's kind of controlling what happens, like he's putting fish into a stream where really there shouldn't be any fish. But then they all enter this like tree. It's kind of like a rotting tree, and Adam goes in, Blue goes in, and Gansey goes in, and Ronan's like, no, I'm not going in, fuck that. Adam sees something that like shakes him to the core. I feel like what he sees is like him either killing Gansey or like hurting Gansey. Blue sees herself like really wanting to smooch Gansey, which I'm like, oh man, like I was really shipping her and Adam, really liking that. And then Gansey comes out and he's just like, oh my god, I saw the king. I saw the Welsh king. I think the king's corpse, like his grave, is on the ley line, or it's also known as the corpse road, because the energy is there to protect him, to keep him okay until he can be reawakened, reanimated, rehydrated, reborn, renewed, rejuvenated, to grant the waker a favor, a tremendous favor. I'm not describing it very well because I actually think it's done really well and it's really kind of beautiful. Then time starts to like stop, because I mean they must be on the ley line now, but like their watches aren't working. Their phones still have power, but like the watches on their phones aren't working, so it seems like time has stopped. According to ley line theory, time can be a fluid thing right on the line. It was one of the more commonly reported effects of ley lines, especially in Scotland. In Scottish folklore, there was a long-held myth that travelers could be pixie-led or led astray by territorial fairies. Hikers would set out along a straight trail only to find themselves inexplicably lost, standing in a location they had no recollection of walking to, yards or miles away from their starting point, their watch showing minutes before or hours after they left, like they'd tripped on a wrinkle in space and time. So I am visiting my family, but I think you saw yesterday morning I finished 1984 and I'm not okay. Like, I'm just not good. I'm not okay. That was a 5-star. It was fantastic. The way that it ended, absolutely crushing. For me, there's like a very distinct switch in the book that happens. I don't want to spoil anything because I somehow didn't know anything about like the second part 3 of 1984, but wow, that was a book. Do you know when you read some books and first it just feels like the stakes are so high, like for you personally and for the world at large, but the ending, especially the endings of books, you really feel like you have a stake in it, and it's all the more devastating and just so good. I was expecting kind of either one of two endings, and I kind of did get one of the endings I was thinking would happen, but I just did not. It's so good. It's really, really so good. I'm so happy I read it. I want to go back and read more from it because I feel like there's just so much to get out of it. And I would love to reread it from the start, kind of knowing what you know from the end of the book. I'm so glad that that was on your favorite books list because that means that I got to read it. So thank you for loving that book, because one of my favorite books of the year. I don't know why I was ever hesitant to pick 1984 up, because it's like phenomenal. It's so good. So the next, obviously, book I have to finish is The Raven Boys. I brought this one with me, but I'm almost done. It's so good. I'm like 300-ish pages through. Guys, this is also so good. Why am I thinking about giving this a 5-star too? This has got to be one of the best young adult books I've read in a long time. So well done. So well done. I just found out something pretty big in the plot, and it was also so well done. I don't know if I want to give you spoilers for this anymore, because I also want you to go and read this. And if you haven't read it for yourself, I don't want to tell you stuff that you don't know. But it has to do with Noah, who is the 4th Raven boy, who is very smudgy. He's described as like smudgy, always blending into the background. He's not really there too much. We only get a few scenes where he's actually with the rest of the Raven boys and Blue, but Blue and Noah really seem to hit it off, and we just found out something huge. The neighbor is doing something quite loud, so I'm just gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna wrap up this little update and say that I'm loving it still, and I don't want it to be over, but I will 1000% be continuing on with the series. It's finally finished. As you can see behind me, I'm currently in the middle of filming another video, but I finished this last night, and I just want to say it was so good. I loved it. I had a really good time. 4 stars, maybe even almost a 5-star.
I'll give it a 5.5.
Okay, good, great. See, glowing reviews all around. I love this. I do think the ending would be my only complaint, because it was a little bit slightly haphazard-ish, but I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited to continue on with the rest of the series. I highly recommend it. I love it. Thank you guys so much for advocating so much for this book. And God, I just have really grown to love all of them. I've grown to love all of them. And I honestly would like to see more of Blue's family and more of the women in Blue's life in the next books, hopefully, because the book is probably more set from the perspective of the Raven Boys. And that's something I also wanted to say to close it off, is that typically when books switch perspectives, I'm always like, oh, like we're going to someone's perspective I don't want to be in, or I want to stay with someone else, but I love both of them equally. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Also, wait, before I go, please recommend me more books to read that are your favorites. Like, leave your favorite book or a recent favorite in the comment section so that I can get more books to read for the next episode 2. So that is everything. Ciao.